So I consider myself a gender equality advocate. Specifically, I'm interested in working with men and boys to promote gender equality and to end violence against women and girls. I'm affiliated with several civil society organizations. So, for example, I am on the board of the Coalition Against Domestic Violence. I'm a co-founder of the Caribbean Gender Alliance. And these organizations are really interested in transforming the relationships between men and women and people generally within our societies to more peaceful relationships. Yeah, I've been involved working in community work and youth work for over 20 years. My work really started off with me trying to find meaning in my own life. At the time, I didn't recognize it. I struggled with my relationship with my father, and at the time, I thought that if I would help other people and find out who are the other people, especially younger men and younger boys, that would some way help me find meaning. Early in my career, I was a secondary school teacher, so I was able to see, how boys show up at school when things are, affecting them at home, such as their relationships with their parents and in particular their relationships with their father. When we look at the data, or even when we look at the news, we know that men make up the majority of perpetrators of violence, those people who do violent acts, as well as the majority of victims of violence, right? So men are on both ends of that violence experience. And I think if we think about masculinity, a lot of masculinity is built around power and control. And in many ways, one of the things that especially boys learn early on is that one way that we can ensure that we have power and control, even if it's just perceived power, is through the use of violence or the threat of violence. 10 years ago, let's say, and early in my work, the work of violence against women and addressing violence against women, these were seen, and gender issues on the whole, were seen as women's issues. But now more and more we're appreciating that if we are to solve these problems, men must be involved. Men are not only part of the problem, but it's important that men and boys be part of the solution. Masculinity, like I said, is not equivalent to men. Masculinity deals with, a gender order, how we rank men and how we rank men against women. And oftentimes, in a patriarchal society, we rank men higher than women, boys higher than girls, masculine ideals higher than feminine ideals. So what I've come to realize is just the concept on a whole places a lot of trauma on men and boys, because you find yourself in this elusive search to be this real man, and for many men, that's really difficult to attain. There's this activity we do with groups, with young people and communities, where we ask, for, things that they associate with masculinity or being a man, and they would list out things like being brave, being the breadwinner, being strong. And we try to flip the script and ask if women and girls can also be those things. And the answer is yes. So it's really about being your best self and not necessarily being the best man or the real man. So it's important for us to really look beyond masculinity, and that's a challenge I often tend to put forward to men and boys that I work with. Looking beyond these social, constructs, these ideas and these ideologies that sometimes have us boxed in. The opposite of violence for me is care. And it's important for us to put forward that positive quality, which is often feminized. When we think about care in the home, for example, and who does most of the caring work, it's usually women and girls, right? Taking care of children, taking care of each other. And I believe it's important that we should really provide these alternatives to men and boys and really try to shift the conversation now to not just being non-violent men and boys, but being caring men and boys. And when we begin to center our ideals on care, I believe it will create a society that is less violent. We are quick to highlight, the toxic masculinity and say men must not do this. But what is important in the Caribbean is that we spotlight those positive examples and positive traits and be able to say, well, this is what we want to define a Caribbean manhood around, and this is what we want to present as an alternative that men and boys can strive to achieve in their lives as, like I said, an ethical and a compassionate self.